and so life-changing and life-saving that I felt the responsibility that I need to just disseminate it to as many people as possible and get the message out there. So we are going to do it live stream. If you guys aren't familiar with what we do, we usually do our events on Facebook Live, so you can watch it right along with us, but then we repost it on our YouTube channel later. So if you find our YouTube channel after the event, you can actually go and watch the previous lectures. We've got what to eat, what not to eat. We've got how to read labels so you can understand how to be a better consumer. We've got stuff on sleep and female health, adrenal stress, thyroid, all the major topics that our patients need extra information on. We've put it all on video so you can go back and rewatch it. But we're going to get started this afternoon with the lecture of the moment. So, am I ready? Am I on? Oh. So, breast cancer prevention, we're going to get into some of the stats and facts and numbers of why this information is so important. If you haven't met me by now, I'm Dr. Christy Harville. I've been in practice for almost 15 years. I practiced in upstate New York for 12 and a half years before I moved to Jacksonville 2.5 years ago. And my practice up there very much is mirroring what my practice down here has become. Across the country, it doesn't matter if we're in the north or the south, we see the same healthcare crisis, we see the same symptoms. People are coming in with fatigue, they can't sleep, they're stressed out of their minds, the weight comes on, their immune systems are compromised. And that really feeds right into this cancer lecture today, because a lot of the newer research on cancer is, we're going to go over a lot of this, but it's not only a genetic disease. They're calling it now a metabolic disease. Metabolic disease means it's good news for all of us because it's very much preventable, and there's a lot of empowering information we're going to go over on things that you can do for yourself. And even if, and we'll go over, like I know there's a mixed crowd. There are some people who have never had breast cancer in the crowd. There are some people who actively have breast cancer, and we have people who have had various treatments, and we also have people who have recovered. And so I want to speak to all the different people that are in the room today, because there is a place for alternative and natural and nutritional therapies at any stage in the game. All right, so the stats are, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you play with the light switches and just see which one? There's only one that works. It might make this slide a little, yeah, just flick them. Thanks. It'll be a little easier to read the slides. There. Yep. Is everybody okay with that amount of light? It'll be easier to read the slideshow. Okay. So 1 in 8 women, sorry, that's not my light. 1 in 8 women currently will develop breast cancer. That's the highest rate of any cancer currently. I originally created this lecture in 2011, and every year I've updated it with what the most common statistics and numbers and information and thinking on this disease have been, and I keep having to increase this number every year. So in 2011, it was estimated that there would be 85,000 new cases, and now in this year, 2017, estimated 316,000 cases. That would put us at 40,000 deaths. And the big thing I want to point out is that 90% have no family history. So we talk about this a lot of times about genetics, and our patients say, "Oh, it's just genetic," and we really empower people to think differently, because we know that genetic factors can be turned on or turned off. So just because, and I'm not just talking about breast cancer now, if your dad had heart disease or your mom had diabetes or somebody had any form of cancer, it does not mean that you inevitably have to get that cancer or go down that road. And that's the hope that we hope to inspire in all of you, is that bodies heal. So just kind of painting the picture, this isn't meant to be doom and gloom, but you kind of have to understand the magnitude of this problem so that we can get to the heart of what's the underlying problem and fix it. So going on the genetic thing, these genes, the BRCA genes 1 and 2, are only linked to 5 to 10% of breast cancers. So in our practice, we have people who have positive genetic testing who never got breast cancer, and we have patients who have breast cancer who never had a positive genetic test. So when people come to me and ask, should I get this genetic test? I don't know. And then mammography, we have somebody here who's going to talk after me for 10 minutes on thermography. They have a booth over there at the health fair. mammograms show cellular changes 8 to 10 years after the first stages of tumor growth. So by the time we can see it with traditional mammograms, the number of cells have doubled 32 times. So by the time your mammogram shows any positive little blip, you already have 4 billion cancer cells. Yeah. So what I want to tell you, the first time I heard this, I was completely horrified. So I hope none of you have that reaction, but we all have cancer cells in our body at any given time. Is that new news to anybody? I see some head shakes. Nobody fell out of their chair. Very educated crowd we have here, which is awesome. Yeah, so when our body is functioning properly, when we're in balance with our environment, when our immune system is good and we're fortifying our bodies with the right foods and avoiding some of the toxic chemicals out there, our body can naturally handle it. And we're going to show you what cancer actually is, what happens when these cells that we all have start to multiply and invade and take over. So there are survivors. This is part of the hope of the conference today. 15.5 million breast cancer survivors in 2017. That's up 13 million since 2010. So is it that the therapy is better, or people are more educated and encompassing natural medicine along with some of the medical treatments, or able to avoid medical treatments altogether? So you kind of have to weigh like what's going on. But we are more educated on this disease and things that we can do. So it's more favorable. Cancers that are decreasing in incidence have always been, have always been the ones that we have some kind of tool to screen for, or that we can change lifestyle factors like smoking and lung cancer and colonoscopies and colon cancer. So if we can learn what the risk factors for breast cancer are and start to avoid them, we'll start to see an improvement in these numbers. So this just goes over another little thing, how we were talking about by the time that traditional mammograms can find right down here how many cells, how many times, 32 times the numbers of cells have doubled. It's usually 7 years by the time you can see it on traditional mammograms. So Dr. John Thomas is here today with thermography. He's going to show you how we can find it when it's way up here. And so your outcomes for treatment are going to be a lot more favorable. So what is cancer? Big thing is cancer doesn't happen overnight. Cancer is the body's rebellion of years of recurrent abuse or repeated irritation. So immune compromise, toxicities, poor diet, environmental factors, stressors. We're going to go in more depth on each of these things. But what happens is the cancer cells, they don't act like normal cells. So they start to grow and invade and they take over, and they don't follow the rules that normal cancer cells follow, or normal body cells follow. So when your body, we say that they're rogue, the cancer cells are rogue and don't follow the rules. When you have natural cells in your body that are diseased, they'll kill themselves in order to benefit the survival of your total body. Cancer cells don't do that. They just keep growing and the immune system can't get to them to handle them. And we say that cancer cells are aggressive and selfish. They eat first. They suppress your own immune system. They make their own blood supply, so they're pro-life, like they're just there to make themselves survive and take over, and they do anything to survive. And we talked about how normal cancer cells would kill themselves for the greater good of the organism. The cancer cells don't. 65% of cancer patients now use complementary approaches for immune enhancement, pain management, and general wellness. So those are three main categories that we help patients in whatever stage that they're going through with. And let's get down to the expectations here. I like to talk about this because I think sometimes people think, oh, she's a chiropractor and she's a clinical nutritionist, so of course, like, she's anti-medicine and all that. It doesn't always have to be all one way or the other, and I really like to tell patients where we sit on it. Of course, you know, I might be a lot more, I don't know, liberal in thinking it because I've seen it. I know the power of the body. So I have a lot more confidence in what can be done naturally than somebody who doesn't have it. So my conviction is really high for treating these things naturally, where other people might be in varying degrees of it. What we always tell our patients, whether it's cancer, whether it's vaccines, or any other, you know, more controversial topic, is you ultimately have to do what's what makes you feel the most comfortable, but you have to do it with knowing both sides of it. Because what we kind of say in our field is, if you knew what we knew, you would do what we do, because we know what works, okay? So we're going to talk about how we can help in different phases and regardless of what the patient decides to do. Of course, I would love everybody to have to avoid surgery and avoid medications and avoid the long-term consequences of all these things, but we have to work with your comfort level and what's the best decision for you and your body and your family as well. Not everybody's decision-making involves the same factors as everybody else's. It's not an all-or-nothing approach. So cancer meds, there's a little bit of scare of using natural remedies and herbs with cancer treatments. Different oncologists may or may not accept you under care if you're taking herbs. But the thing to know is that this stuff, these medications, it's like a freight train. There's nothing that's going to get in the way of that. It's going to do whatever it's intended to do. So our little herbs and medications, or our herbs and supplements, aren't going to get in the way of it. And this kind of goes along with what I was saying. The word doctor means wise teacher. So all my job is to give you information so that you can make an informed, educated decision. It's not to persuade you or sell you or talk you into or out of anything. So the role of alternative medicine, we put a big chunk word in there. It's really about hope, because by the time usually people come to see me, they've been everywhere else. They've done everything. They've had all these invasive tests and procedures. They're not getting the answers. They don't really feel great about what the recommendations are, but they don't know what else to do. And a lot of times patients come to us without lacking hope, because their opinion is like, nobody else has been able to help me, so how are you going to be any different? And that's where I'm super passionate about what I do and about getting this information out and holding these events and doing, we do tea parties. We go to our patients' houses and we do free healthcare lectures and screenings, like a little grassroots effort to get out into the community and get this information out there, because we provide hope. If you go and you read all those success stories that are in our waiting room, the reason those success stories are there is because my conviction level about the power of the body. The power that made the body heals the body. And your body can heal. I don't really care what long-term diagnosis or prognosis or doom and gloom that you've been given. We know differently. And we see it on a daily basis. And it kind of becomes like this crazy thing where, like, that's our norm. We live in this like fairy tale make-believe land where bodies heal and people overcome these things that they were told they just had to live with, and that drugs and surgery were the only answer. That's our norm on a daily basis. It's pretty incredible. And so I don't know how to tell you that other than just share the information and have you go and read the testimonials and the success stories time and time again about things that people were told couldn't happen in a favorable recovery. And they happen here every day. Pretty cool. So that's our job, is to give hope. Cancer is called the silent killer. So we're going to go over what are the symptoms of cancer, because you might be really shocked that this starts to sound like any list of any other chronic illness. And the reason it sounds like it is because of this theory now, and all the research is proving that it is not only a genetic disease, it's a metabolic disease. So you might be surprised. We talked about family history is only 50% of the risk. Waist circumference, so body weight. If you have obesity, your mortality rate, if you were diagnosed with breast cancer, is 62%. So we already know, like, if you were inevitably diagnosed, there's things that you could do to improve your outcomes for treatment later on in life. So that's part of the preventative. Prolonged estrogen exposure, so that means that if you started your period really early and you never had a pregnancy, or you had a pregnancy later in life, that increases risk factors. Insulin levels, so this is where I get to talk about sugar. Everybody who knows me knows I hate sugar, because sugar feeds cancer, it feeds heart disease, it feeds inflammation, and we already know that inflammation and stress can be linked to every disease process on the planet, right? Okay, hormone imbalance, so any female reproductive issues, PMS, ovarian cysts, fibroids, hot flashes, and then also adrenal issues and thyroid issues. And I think there's another slide later that'll show you the link between, right here. No, it's later. Taking hormone medications actually increases your risk of breast cancer, basically because you haven't gotten to the underlying root of your hormone imbalances. Heart disease and cholesterol levels. So did anybody know that heart disease and breast cancer were related? Prolonged stress. So nobody has any of that, so we'll just move on to the next one. Just move right along. Liver dysfunction. So if your body isn't detoxing properly, that can cause hormone imbalances. Everybody always talks about the liver and detox, but did you know that your liver is actually where you make hormones? So if you're on some of these cholesterol lowering medications that impact the liver, that increases your risk factors for cancer because your body's detoxification processes and natural hormone synthesis has been compromised. And there's tons of people on those medications. Bowel dysfunction. So if you aren't pooping, that's my second. Sugar is my first favorite topic and poop is my second favorite topic. You have to poop. If you're not pooping, your body is reabsorbing toxins and also being exposed to these estrogens and excess hormone levels. That's how you evacuate. When you poop, you get rid of excess hormones. And medications, of course. So the 4 phases of breast health, number 1 is prevention. So of course, that's always the best. As an alternative medicine doctor, as a chiropractor, we always treat and teach prevention 100%. But as a prevention-minded doctor, do we get patients who already have diagnoses and are somewhere in a different phase of chronic illness? Of course, and we can deal with you at that phase too. But in the prevention phase, some things that we want to do is learn risk factors, modify the diet, deal with stress management, get patients on detox programs, of course early detection and screening. We talked about thermography. There's also saliva testings to actually measure the amounts of these hormones. Whole food supplementation. A lot of you were asking me what do I think about hormone therapy. It's usually the very last thing. We use whole food nutrition first. If whole food nutrition alone doesn't get the hormones regulated, we then move into herbs, which are a little bit stronger and have more of a medicinal effect. And then last would be hormones and not synthetic bioidentical. But I used to use some of this bioidentical stuff, and all the advanced training that I've done in nutrition response testing, I haven't used it at all in 2.5 years that I've been in Jacksonville. It's pretty cool. I'm getting the same results or better. And of course, avoiding chemicals and toxins, which we'll teach you about. Then patients who are at risk for breast cancer, say you have a genetic predisposition or a positive test or family members or exposure, if you work in an environment where you work with toxic chemicals or you're exposed to radiation all the time, it would be the same as above, but we might go into more depth with some of the saliva and blood tests for hormone levels. So I don't always do that either. I probably only sent out a couple in 2.5 years since I've been here in Jacksonville because I don't need it with the nutrition response testing that we do. The 3rd phase would be people who have a current diagnosis of breast cancer. So that would be always and forever cut out sugar and phytoestrogens in the diet right away and completely. See that dot? Supplementation for the immune system to fight the cancer. So we're going to get the immune system fighting it. Did you guys know that your immune system is the only system in your body that can fight cancer effectively? So your immune system is super important. Preventing metastasis. So if you have it, we want to prevent it from spreading and devastating other body tissues, and also to diminish the side effects of current treatments if the patient had decided to do that. So our detoxification programs are really important to get the excess radiation and chemo out of the body. And if you are a breast cancer survivor, then it's really important to make sure that you haven't just slightly recovered and that we can completely return the body to optimal health so that the body is it's an unfavorable host so that you don't suffer recurrence. So there's some statistics about what they consider a breast cancer survivor, and they say like beyond 5 years they consider you a survivor. But if you got breast cancer recurrence at 5.5 or 6 years, they still made the statistics look favorable. So we want to overcome the minimal statistics that they're stating. So, causes of cancer. One of the big things, has anybody heard about the truth about cancer? They were just in Orlando. It's really awesome new research, and it's not just alternative doctors and nutritionists, it's medical doctors and oncologists who are also trying to show that there's some natural measures that can be done. But what they all said is, like, we're doing breast cancer awareness because it's October and we do that every year, but this could very well be a lecture on any type of cancer. And so we kind of told, like, the risk factors are the same. Cancer is cancer. The way it invades the body is the same, regardless if it's your prostate or your lung or your breast or your brain. So all the rules that I'm talking about apply to anybody that you know with any form of it. But we talked about how it's a metabolic disease, not a genetic. High blood sugar and insulin resistance can cause it. So I just want to harp on the sugar thing for a second. Remember a couple of slides back, you knew I was gonna. A couple of slides back, I was saying that if you have active cancer, that one of the rules is no sugar. So if cancer is fed by sugar, and sugar isn't good for somebody who has active cancer, why in the world are we waiting to get cancer to get off of sugar? Shouldn't we just not eat sugar preventatively? Ah, point made. Increased estrogen levels. Chronic low-grade infection is really interesting because a lot of people test for the immune challenges in our test kits, which I'll show you all when you come over after, when we continue the health fair. You don't always know that you have low-grade infection, and a lot of times people just think they can't sleep or they have body aches, like they call it some kind of syndrome, or they're stressed out, but they don't realize that it's related to like a low-grade yeast infection or a low-grade viral infection or low-grade bacterial load. We've got tons of patients with Lyme disease and they didn't know they had it for years and years and years until finally somebody could help them in an alternative way. So that's really important. And then nutritional deficiencies. And so what we know, and I think I've got one from Linus Pauling, we know that every single disease is related to nutritional deficiencies on some level. So breast cancer and hormones, the reason why estrogen gets the bad rap is because 60% of breast cancer are estrogen sensitive, and there are other cancers that are estrogen sensitive as well. Hormone replacement therapy, if anybody's on it, this is kind of alarming because everybody says, oh, is it FDA approved? And I say, oh, who really cares? Because this is the kind of stuff that the FDA does all the time. In 2002, they had a women's health initiative because they were studying Premarin and Provera, which is horse urine. They use progesterone and estrogen from horse urine. And they had to discontinue the study due to an alarming incidence of breast, endometrial, and ovarian cancers. Well, guess what? Those drugs are still on the market today. Yeah. So there's your trusted, a trusted government regulated board there. Birth control pills and synthetic hormone replacement therapy increases risk 50%. So people were asking, what do you think about this? I think don't do it. I think that we see a lot of patients that we have to clean it up and detox it out of their body, and I was one of them. I haven't shared with you my health history, but I was that patient who got tested and bounced around and couldn't find answers. I was put on hormone replacement therapy for years as a kid. When I was in college, I gained 20 pounds because they told me to double up on my birth control pills because that was what they did back then. I've been through menopause twice, chemically induced, hormonally induced, and it took me years to get that stuff out of my body. So I'm talking from a place of understanding, and I've done it firsthand, and I had to get all that stuff out of my body and understand the effects of it, and that's ultimately what's helped, me be passionate about helping all of you. I don't want you to go through what I went through. And is my risk factor higher because of all that? Heck yes, right? Xenoestrogens are things that mimic the effects of estrogen. So plastics, I think everybody kind of all know that at some level nowadays. Phthalates are in a ton of products. Growth hormones and pesticides. So those are the two I don't know if people realize. Those are also considered xenoestrogens. Phytoestrogens in soy. Last year I gave this lecture and I was going off about soy, and a lady stood up and said, I use a soy-based protein shake every single day. And I said, well, okay, In 15 years of practice, this is a category that's gone up and down. There's as many research studies for soy as a phytoestrogen, which is supposed to be healthy for you, as there are research articles that show that it actually feeds cancer. So I say it's too controversial, just stay away from it. There's plenty of other foods to eat. Now what I will say in relationship to what that last lady told us is that not all soy is created equal, same as not all supplements are created equal. So if it's soy in its natural form, like an edamame, that's not the same thing as soy that is some white, creamy, slimy block. Got it? Most soy is genetically modified and is very highly processed to get it in that white, slimy block. Okay, where are we? Go back for a second. Plastics, they said number 3 and 4 and 7 specifically, but what they, there's all this BPA-free plastic nowadays, but now there's BPAs and other things that they've replaced it with, and it's in children's toys and all that, and we just don't know yet what the effects are going to be. So they kind of just took one thing and replaced it with another potentially dangerous thing. So just stay away from plastics. You don't have to be a biochemist to figure out what numbers and composition of plastics are dangerous or not. Just stay away from it. And this is a new word that I learned from the Truth About Cancer lectures and research, is metalloestrogens. So they're now finding that mercury, which we already understood was bad for our health, mercury can be linked to estrogens. And then the last is fuel exhaust. So cancer and chemicals, just so you know, billions of pounds of chemicals are dumped into the environment every day. A lot of times in our test kits with the nutrition response testing, we find all these different forms of chemicals, and people may or may not understand what the relationship or the exposure was from. Most of the time we don't know, and I just say if you're breathing air and you're drinking water and you're living on this earth, you've had some kind of chemical exposure, including radioactive metals. Like, they had to expand the test kits that we have because they had to increase, like double increase what we can test for, because they wanted to put all of the things that are the highest risk factors for cancer in our kits, because if we can find it in the body sooner and we can detox it out, it decreases your risk factor. And this is something, after all these 15 years of studying and doing this, I was like, wow, we've done this. Maybe not us in this room, we all might contribute in some small way, but with all our chemical industrial industries and all this, and chemical foods and processed stuff, we did this to the earth. And now our bodies are having an issue living on the earth and being in balance with the earth. And the other revelation I just had last night as I was preparing for this was like, how come as an industry and a society, like, we always strive to be better, right? We're always finding ways to improve technology and improve our businesses and make things better because we learn, right? As we learn and go forward, we have the chance to improve stuff. Well, why in the world is it the opposite with our health? With all the information and knowledge and access to food and organics and all this other stuff that we have, why is our health declining? We have power, you guys. There's something that can be done. And beauty products, so today we have Beauty Counter with us today. We have doTERRA with us today. There are non-toxic lines of deodorants, makeup, chemicals, house cleaners that you can start to implement as well. This was a fun fact. In our lifetime, a woman is exposed to 11,000 tampons or pads in a lifetime, which is exposure to dioxins and phthalates. I don't know how that little thing got there. That's doTERRA ginger oil. That was my This little guy is on the recipe card next door for natural ginger ale. Somehow it came over here on my slideshow. 10:30 at night, you never know what's going to happen to your slideshow, right? We talked about this new category of xenometallogens. So these are metals that mimic estrogen. So we always knew that metal, like aluminum, was bad for deodorant because it's right near our lymph nodes, which is near our breast. But in addition to the metal itself being toxic, it mimics estrogen, which I didn't know. That's new research. This is even more dangerous. Electropollution, this is one of those, like, people are like, oh, it's kind of frou-frou. Electromagnetic pollution is a real thing. Every day we're exposed to it. If we're in this room, there's power lines and tablets and pads and GPS, and our cars are little computers. You're constantly being surrounded by electromagnetic pollution. Well, what you don't realize is just because alternative medical doctors are the only ones that address this, it's a real issue because the World Health Organization actually categorizes it as a class 2 toxin. They're just not publishing it or making a big deal out of it. So you don't realize what an issue it is to our health. But it's as dangerous, a class 2 toxin means it's as dangerous to your body as lead and DDT. So we all know those are bad things. This is another thing, the average household has more than 1,000 toxic chemicals in it. And then lotions and potions, the average person uses over 17 products. I know it's cut off. The average person uses over 17 products from start to finish. So I just always challenge you, in the morning, start counting all the things that you slather on your body during your morning routine, and over the lifetime you're absorbing that through your skin. Your skin is your largest organ. It's porous, so anything that goes on your skin goes in your body. Breast cancer nutrition. You guys, I'm talking so fast because I want to cram this all in, but we literally, I mean, the Truth About Cancer is a 3-day seminar. They have like a 7-series DVD. You know, like, we could talk about this forever and ever. I just want to give you the highlights and things that you can go home with, and a list of things that you can implement. That's the only handout from this lecture that I gave you, is what you can do about all this information. You don't need to know the numbers and the stats and all, just you really need to know, now that you know this, what can you do with it. But nutrition is not a one-size-fits-all cookie-cutter approach. Dr. Veronica, I don't know how to say your name, I'm really sorry. Anybody? Hissolene. I'm Italian. She said, this is another powerful, like, aha moment. You either feed your body or you feed the cancer. You have a choice. T-shirts, we gotta make some t-shirts. And this was Linus Pauling. If you're not aware of him, he's a Nobel Peace Prize winner, and years ago, way ahead of his time, like Royal Lee and Weston A. Price and some of the people that we follow and study their principles today, to this day, nearly all disease can be traced to a nutritional deficiency. So how important is nutrition? Breast cancer and nutrition. The industrialization of foods in the 1950s, we're now just seeing the results of that. So all this new stuff that they keep introducing, and new chemicals and new foods and new diets and new whatever, you're not going to see the effects of that until that much time has passed to understand the massive impact on our health as a society. So we just stick with traditionally what's always worked. Like, there's no mysteries about any of what I'm telling you. Like, if we just went back to what traditionally worked and get rid of all the new stuff that we started calling food and calling skincare and calling household products, we would do a lot better. The average American eats over 150 pounds of sugar a year. Alcohol, if you drink more than half a glass of wine a day, it increases your risks. This was another thing. A lot of people come to us and they're saying, well, should I go vegan, vegetarian? What do you think? Well, both trains of thought can give some success, right? I always ask, what's the commonality between Weston A. Price Foundation and the China study, which are completely opposite trains of thought? One's completely plant-based and one is completely animal protein and animal fat-based. The commonality and why most people, whether they go one way or another, is because they've made major dietary changes and shifts. All of these diets tell you to get off of processed food, get off of sugar, get off of dairy, soy, wheat, all the major inflammatory foods. So is somebody going to feel better and decrease their health risk factors and show improvement on blood labs and, body composition? Absolutely. But which can be maintained and sustained more long term? And we do, in my practice in 15 years, it is very difficult for me to get a body completely balanced out if you're following a completely vegetarian or vegan based diet and you're not incorporating some kind of animal products or fats into the diet. And so the standard processed product, if you won't eat it, then we have to get it into you one way or another. Another just kind of way to think on this is that your body, you're an animal. You have animal-like cells. Your cells are more closely related to animal cells. So if you're not getting some kind of animal products in you, it's very difficult to replicate the human cell structure with only plants. You are not a plant. Supplements, of course, it's impossible for us to eat the amount of nutrition that our bodies require to keep up with the daily stresses and demands. As a chiropractor, I can tell you that the evidence in this is how well bodies maintain adjustments. So our forefathers in chiropractic, the founders of chiropractic, they would adjust the spine, they would see miraculous changes, and the body would hold those adjustments. Over the course of time, the industrialization of food, the increased incidence of these chemicals and processed stuff and grains and wheat and gluten and all that, bodies don't hold adjustments anymore. So a lot of people are afraid to go to chiropractors because they say they need to go forever. Well, if you don't get the inflammation out of a body, you better believe you need to go forever, because your inflamed body won't maintain an adjustment the way they used to when our forefathers created chiropractic. Our bodies are more complex, we're more stressed, we're more exposed to toxic chemicals than ever before. So the case for chiropractic is amazing, but it goes hand in hand with diet and nutrition. And these are all things that we supplement on, and we've talked about all those different categories. Something important about iodine, we always think about iodine as important for the thyroid, but the breast and the thyroid compete for iodine. Deficiency of iodine causes cysts and nodules or growths. These are all on your what you can do list. Taking iodine supplements or eating iodine-rich foods. Increasing cruciferous vegetables in the diet will help with phase 2 liver detox and actually binds to the excess estrogen so that you can decrease them. We talked about gut health. The gut is so important for immune. So eating fermented foods that are high in natural occurring probiotics. Broccoli sprouts. I just put these on my list. I'm like, that is one thing that's so easy. I'll just add those to my salads. Done. So what I want to tell you too is that this is going to seem like a huge long list of things to do. At every lecture, I give you a lot of things, and I just encourage you to try to pick one or two. Like, what are the 2 things on your list that are the easiest to implement, and start there, okay? And then once you've gotten those 2 handled, pick the next 2 things and start there. Question?
Anybody sell broccoli sprouts?
You can't find them? You can grow them.
I know. I just found them hard to grow, and I found
Are they?
Well,
if anybody finds them, let's post it. Okay, good. When you guys find things like that, we do have the Health by Design members only page. We're trying to encourage interaction, so that if you find something at a great price or something that's hard to find locally, let's all congregate and have a community where we share those types of things. And the biggest question people ask me is, what do I eat? You took away all my wheat and dairy and soy and all that, then what's left? And there's lots of stuff left. And then flax. Flax actually lowers aggressive estrogens in the body. So what you can do. Chiropractic, did anybody know that it's not just for neck pain, back pain, and headaches? My patients know that. Chiropractic is the maintenance of your nervous system. Your nervous system is the master controller of every other system in your body. So if your nervous system is short-circuited and miscommunicating, it can't tell all your organs and glands and body parts how to act appropriately, and that's number one, the root cause of anything. So we can start out here with the heart and the stomach and the lungs, but if your nervous system, which controls those, is out of alignment, we're not going to have 100% resolution of the problem. So getting adjusted helps balance your nervous system, which helps your body adapt to stress more effectively. It also improves immune system functioning, and it actually changes your DNA. Isn't that amazing? You can change your DNA with a chiropractic adjustment. Powerful. Be informed of risk factors, self-breast exams and screenings, including thermography. Getting your hormones checked, getting tested for nutritional deficiencies. We're all going to show you what nutrition reflex testing is today. Myself and Charlie are doing free health screenings. talk to a professional about a detox program, and we're talking about a full body detox program, a cellular detox. I always kind of laugh about detox, and he's like, oh, I did a gallbladder cleanse, oh, I did a liver cleanse, oh, I did a colon cleanse, and I'm like, well, what about the rest of your body? Like, why did you decide your gallbladder was the only area that needed to be cleaned out? So a cellular cleanse is much different, and we can share information about that with you. Read labels. So this makes you come to one of our additional classes because they hide stuff on those labels. But that doesn't just include food labels. We're talking about cosmetics, containers, beauty products, cleaning supplies. And as you talk to the vendors today, they'll teach you a little bit about each of those areas. Just in general, decreasing your reliance on chemicals. Talking to your doctor about decreasing or eliminating medications. Did you know that you can talk to your doctors? Everybody's so afraid to talk to their doctor. If you're doing all these other things, the chances of you being able to decrease or come off of medications is a lot higher. So in our practice, I'm not a medical doctor. I can't take patients off of a prescription that another doctor has prescribed. But what we do is we get your body in balance, we get you healthy, and we send you back to the doctor to repeat whatever lab value or diagnostic test told you needed that medicine in the first place. And they're kind of forced to decrease your medication because you don't need it anymore, or you don't need as much of it. So that's how we handle that issue in the practice. Clean out your cupboards. We just had Irma. Irma helped us with this because we had to throw everything away. And so we were telling our patients, it's like the Irma detoxification program. Don't buy all the same stuff. Put healthier stuff back in. Don't drink tap water. I could talk to you forever and ever and ever. I'm just going to tell you, don't do it. Everybody's like, oh, I have this filtration unit, and it's, you know, I have RO water and this type of water and that type of water. The fact of the matter is, with tap water, it's not only like the sediment and the things that can be filtered out that are the issue. There are actually energetic resonances of medications, including birth control pills and hormone replacement therapy, in your water. And the over the course of a lifetime, the accumulated effects of those micro, like nanoparticles, is more disruptive to your system than if you actually like took a macromolecule of it, or a large dose of it. It builds up in your system, and that cannot be filtered out. There's actually a guy in Clearwater who could do it. If you want to talk to me, you send him a sample of water, and he designs a filtration unit that can like balance out that electromagnetic, or the radio frequency of it, and send you the unit that you need for your particular situation. He's the only guy that I've heard of that does it. And don't eat canned foods. What you can do continued. See, this is so good. There's 2 whole slides on what you can do. Awesome. They have showed that a ketogenic diet, which means high fat, moderate protein, low carbohydrate, kills cancer cells. They did amazing studies. So go see Stephanie from Bellini Mind and Body. She's one of our vendors. She's part of our office, and she can talk to you about how to start implementing that and looking at your macromolecules and all that kind of stuff. Here's the sugar part, low glycemic index. Not just the sugars that you're thinking, but also fruits and vegetables. Improving the microbiome of your gut. So if you aren't regular, you're not pooping, you need to poop. Don't eat sugar and make sure you're pooping. 2 take-home messages. I'm saying that repeatedly for the online audience because I think it's hysterical. There's been people that are like going to count how many times I say the word poop in my lectures. So there, I gave you another one. Reducing stress, but none of us have any, so we're going to pass right by that again, right? No, you need to build in rest. You need to unplug. You need to recharge. I'm talking to myself. Mindset. They did research studies on people who did the best with any kind, whether they did medical or whether they did alternative or a combination of the both. And a lot of this mindset and belief and gratitude and prayer and, you know, having faith had a lot to do with it. A ton to do with the difference in recoveries. Question in the back?
I just was very curious about what you might say about fasting.
It's on here. Oh, I did skip it? Okay. Fasting, they did a lot of studies about the immune response. So both intermittent fasting, which is huge with ketogenic, and Stephanie can talk to you a little bit more about that, which is just more like a short-term fast or waiting longer periods from one meal to the next meal, but also doing like 24 and 48-hour water fasts, increased phagocytosis, which is a fancy word for white blood cell function. Oxygen is actually toxic to cancer, so here's a plug for Stephanie as well. You need to exercise and you need to breathe. Visualization. This is another thing that I think people don't, we focus all the time on the negative aspects and what we don't want to happen, and when we're fearful of getting cancer and we're fearful of the genetic predisposition from our families. What if you visualized what you did want and started visualizing your body already living with optimal health and vitality and feeling good? Wouldn't that be positive? Sleep, and there's a whole lot of factors about sleep. That's a lecture in and of itself, but it's super important. They talked about super hydration at the Truth About Cancer. We already knew about adding salt, so if you're not absorbing water appropriately, you need to add healthy salts like Himalayan sea salt and some of that stuff to it, or bone broth, which would naturally have the sea salts in it. But this one doctor, and I don't know, I'm just putting this up here to make myself sound more friendly. He told his patients to drink 32 ounces of water before they even eat breakfast.
Maybe in coffee.
No. If you drink coffee, you have to add another cup of water because the coffee is a diuretic. So, And reducing exposure to EMF and radiation. It might be impossible if you work on a computer and you have to carry a tablet around and you're on your phone all the time and it's hooked to your hip. There are devices that we can show you that decrease the dangerous effects of electromagnetic pollution. There's a lot of products out there and a lot of them are not effective at all. There's a lot of stuff with them. If you pay $20, it's probably not doing it for you. Using MCT and SCT oils. This SCT was a new theme. MCT oils come from coconut oil. They're medium chain triglycerides, but they're now showing that there's some short chain triglycerides that are equally powerful and effective. So I just put it on here because I think people always think MCT oil is for like concentration and clarity and focus and fat burning, but it's also anti-cancer, which is great. Taking immune support supplements, which you can't see on there, is coffee enemas, the Gerson therapy. If you don't know how to do this effectively, the Gerson therapy books will have a whole protocol for that. Buying organic. I know people are like, oh, I can't do it, it's too important, it's too expensive, I can't afford it. Well, you can't afford cancer either, so maybe you could find some money in your budget somewhere from the Starbucks and the lattes and the Dunkin' Donuts and whatever else you're spending money on, and reorganize and budget for this stuff, because this, honest to God, it's life and death. And using non-toxic cleaners and personal care products, and we have a whole slew of people that we have next door to talk to you about that. Any questions? You're afraid to ask me a question. You're afraid to talk to your doctor. Very good. Well, we can talk one-on-one next door, too. Thank you.
Thank you.